I'm Michelle Rowan, Franchise Business Review, and today I get to talk with Ally, who is a franchisee with Skyhawks Sports. And thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, and what I want to start with is your team told me that you actually started researching the franchise when you were not currently living in the United States. So if you just want to kind of tell me about what you were doing beforehand and how you kind of found your way to Skyhawks, that would be great, how your research started.
Correct. Yeah. So it's been quite a journey. Certainly 5,000 miles between where I used to live and where I live now, out in San Antonio in Texas. So I'm here on a visa, which means I had to invest and kind of start a company to get it started. So having an idea of a franchise was not something necessarily that crossed my mind when I first started looking at opportunities. But yeah, my background is I work in the UK. I've been working in youth sports and used to be involved in education for about 15 years. So now married with 2 kids and enjoying my job, but obviously not necessarily enjoying having to be bossed around by certain people I wanted to have more respect for, but couldn't bring myself to because they made some decisions that I necessarily didn't agree with, which I'm sure is a thing that kind of sparks a thought with a lot of people that are probably on this call. So kind of looked around, researched about different opportunities, and then kind of put it to rest a little bit, and then carried on doing my day job, which back in kind of 2019, 2020, when I was kind of in the midst of creating lots of resources for schools to help with least active children in the UK, I started researching online about teaching life skills through sports and kind of fumbled across the Skyhawks website. Went to their resources section, and on a tab just next to it was a tab that said franchise. I'm like, okay, that's piqued my interest a little bit. Let's have a little look. And then that led me down a bit of a path, checked out the Franchise Business Review website and a few other places, and thought this could work. So kind of reached out to some, and then 2-3 years later, here I am.
So Ally, were you familiar with franchising? Was that one of the things that you were kind of thinking about when you wanted to leave that corporate job, or were you really just looking for an opportunity to run your own business that you weren't so honed in on franchise specifically?
So it wasn't even in my radar really. I've always thought, my wife and I are kind of Americans at heart almost, so we always thought about how could this possibly happen, what we have to do. It wasn't actually until I took a trip this is just a weird story, but took a trip on a helicopter near Disney. You can't get near Disney, it's about 6 miles away. And the pilot was Scottish. So I kind of just asked him on the way back, he's like, hey, by the way, how is it you have to live here? Being obviously a Scot with a thicker accent than me. And he's like, oh, I'm on this investment visa. So that's kind of where I first found out about it. And then that happened about, I don't know, a few months before I kind of, discovered Skyhawks. So it was a series of coincidences that kind of led me down the franchise route. It wasn't something necessarily I looked for or considered strongly, but when the word franchise came up on the Skyhawks website, it kind of clicked in my brain, and that's when the research really started.
Awesome. And Ally, you mentioned that you're married. How involved was your partner, your wife, in the whole research process, or how did you go through this together, or make sure that she was on board with what you were exploring?
So she's not really involved in the day-to-day or the decisions of the business, but like obviously 100%, right? It's a big move. Moving 10 miles away to a new house is a big move in a life of a person, let alone a whole family with 2 kids. And so moving and choosing which location to base our franchise in, that was something that was supported by Skyhawks, but also very much something that my wife and I did together and worked out where would best fit our family and where would best fit both of us personally. Had to be a good area where there was a growth opportunity. But yeah, like there was a lot of decisions, a lot of checklists, a lot of scoring matrices, whatever you want to call them, matrix. Maybe I have to edit that word out. I'm not sure what it's called. What's the plural of matrix? Whatever the plural of matrix is. We did a lot of that, trying to work out exactly where it might fit us best. And it's a little bit of guesswork, but we did a trip out to the States and then, scoped out the areas. Only visited San Antonio once before I moved here, but that seemed to be enough for us.
Yeah, very brave. It takes a lot of courage to do that. So that's awesome.
Cool.
So what are the kinds of questions that you asked, or how did you do your research, especially starting from another country? How did you go about sussing out if this was the right brand for you?
But I think I'm a big component of like coincidences aren't always coincidences. Like I'm not saying I believe in fate, but I only kind of stumbled across Skyhawks because I was researching for teaching life skills through sports. So something I've been really passionate about, having worked in education and being involved in youth sports for the majority of my working life. I wanted to find a company that I was passionate about the job as well as the growth opportunity rather than just one or the other. So with speaking with Skyhawks and their COO and all the different people involved in the organization about how I can make this happen, it seemed that I had a chance to work in a company that I was going to be able to wake up on a Monday morning and look forward to what I was doing, but also know that year on year, month on month, there was multiple opportunities to grow in terms of leveraging current business and customers or partners we already had within the corporate world. So yeah, I didn't have any regrets about kind of stepping into the franchise world with Skyhawks, but I didn't even really consider other franchises, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, that's great. So now that you've been doing this for about 1.5 years, what does your typical workday look like? And also then I would add too, is it what you expected it would be like as you kind of onboard your business or launch your business? And then now that you're a little bit more established, has that kind of changed?
Yeah, I mean, I still kind of feel like I'm in the launch phase, right? 18 months down the line. I've been lucky enough to, I guess, create some really great relationships and lean on some of the support I've got from corporate to expand and add some new territories. So I'm now just not one single unit franchise. I've got 3 units, which I now work with a business partner on as well. I don't think there is a typical work day, if I'm honest. I love the fact that every day is different. I don't think necessarily is what I expected when I got started, but for sure, reviewing emails, right, checking in with partners, with parents if I have to, prioritizing, allocating tasks, and making sure I support my staff to be as successful as possible. I think that's probably what every boss's job is.
Yeah. And how many employees are you overseeing now? And when it started, did you have employees right off the bat, or were you trying to do this by yourself? And then how much is it scaled with, you said 3 territories that you're now operating in?
Yeah. So I guess I'm quite lucky, but I on purpose made sure I chose a business that I was aware of how the operations work. Right. So being involved in coaching, which is part of what I do with the youth sports business, it was something I could hire myself up effectively as a coach or director and train up other staff. Started with probably 3 staff within a few months for a couple of programs. And now, I guess, 18, 20 months in, we're on about 25 staff. So the majority are part-time. Some I move on from, some I keep longer, and some, I don't get a choice in, right? Because of the way the world's working. But yeah, it's been quite an expansion from where I was June 2021.
Yeah. And so what are your biggest challenges in running, either specifically running this business or just running a business in general? What do you feel like are the big hurdles that you have to tackle?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of challenges, right? Every single day. Keeping on top of things, I guess, is the biggest hurdle. Not getting bogged down in the day to day and still seeing the bigger picture and the light sometimes when things get tough. Yeah, the staffing is probably the word that comes across everyone's lips, right? You talk about challenges and finding the right people and then putting the right processes in place to make staffing not as much of a challenge. So, I like the idea that there's a guy who wanted to make British cycling. Sounds like a weird analogy, but hopefully it'll work. So there's a guy called Dave Brailsford who wanted to make British cycling more successful, and he introduced this idea of the 1% rule. Like, what can you do to make it 1% better? And then those 1% all add up. So it's kind of, I guess, my weekly mission, right? What can I do to help my staff 1% more this week or make this 1% better? And then, hopefully I've been able to leverage that into, some good partners with good staff who do a better than good job.
Yeah. Well, that makes it feel more manageable, the 1%. I like that. So what do you like best about being part of Skyhawks? What do you find really valuable from their team, or what you get from being part of the brand?
But I think I kind of covered it by the fact that I get to run a franchise with something I'm really passionate about, right? So youth sports, getting to feel like I'm making a difference, whether I am or not, but certainly feel like we're making a difference in children's lives and their families' lives too. That's probably the thing that kind of drives me. Working for a kind of, I guess, Skyhawks corporate group where I not only can lean on them for finance, for customer service, for sales, for all these different things, but also a great franchise network, which probably when I first started, I didn't necessarily know how much I'd lean on them, and maybe wish I'd lean on them even more before I started, if I knew how great a resource they'd be. But yeah, sorry, I'm not sure I'm answering the question there properly.
No, absolutely. I think that the power of having other people being in the same business as you is something that new franchisees don't necessarily think. Like, you could reach out and have those conversations and they would be willing to talk with you. But franchisees understand that the stronger we make our brand, the better it is for all of our businesses. So that I think that that's a great point of just maybe reach out sooner. It seems kind of scary, but reach out sooner and ask those questions, or try and tap into what they know or what they would have done differently if they were just starting today is a great idea.
Yeah, and it's often hard, right? Because there are probably some questions that aren't the best questions to ask straight away, right? But for every one question you ask that's not going to be helpful, there's probably 3 questions you wouldn't have otherwise asked that are going to be helpful in your journey. And I still go back to those notes I now made 16, 25, 30 2 years ago that now help me and do things that I wouldn't have otherwise thought about now. So the franchisee network is more than just a resource. It's like something that you have to live and breathe, right? And then pass it on too, right? Which I love having phone calls with other franchisees who are looking to come on board. Yeah,
that's great. So what advice would you give to somebody that is exploring investing in a franchise today?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess there's never a perfect time. So if you're looking for a perfect time, it doesn't exist. You got to be willing to take the risk. Don't do it if you're not a resilient person, because I think resiliency and the ability to, deal with setbacks rather than let it push you back is going to be super important for any person looking to start their own business, and especially start their own franchise. But don't be scared of the opportunity. It will be different to whatever you're doing right now, because you'll have to make decisions that are harder and faster than probably ever before. But it's not something I regret, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Ally.
Okay, thank you.